The man they call the Warden stops dead in the middle of the forest, one boot hovering over a patch of disturbed earth. He's been like this the whole hike, head tilted, eyes scanning, the kind of alert that comes from a man who has buried friends. He kneels, presses 2 fingers into the dirt, pulls them back, stained faint red. "This is the spot," he says. Behind him, 4 people stand in a loose semicircle. He picked each of them himself, vetted them, paid them more money than any of them have seen in one place before. And tonight, that money is about to feel very, very small. "Last time," the Warden says, not turning around. "Whatever I tell you to do, you do. Immediately. No hesitating, no asking why. Out here, hesitation is how people die." Nobody answers. They've heard this speech twice already today. Renner, the research team, where are they? A woman in tactical gear crouches at the tree line, a slim handheld scope pressed to one eye. Renner spent 6 years doing perimeter security for people who needed to disappear. She doesn't talk much. She doesn't need to. 200 meters, that ridge line. Looks like they found the old station. A pause. It's not a station. Too quiet. No birds for half a mile around it. "Good eye," the Warden says. "Wait, what research team?" This from Priya, arms crossed, watching the Warden like he's a problem she hasn't solved yet. She was hired 3 days ago, in a hurry, and nobody has explained nearly enough to her. "You said this was a recovery job. Recover what?" The Warden ignores her. He always ignores her first question. It's the second one he answers, if she's lucky. "Something's wrong with this place." That's Dex, wiry, expensive jacket 2 sizes too clean for the woods, currently pale as paper. Dex doesn't hunt monsters for the money, not really, though the money helps. He hunts them because 3 years ago he woke up able to feel them coming, and there was no off switch. "I don't mean the team, I mean here, this whole forest. Something about it isn't sitting right in my head." "I know," the Warden says. "You know?" "That's why we're here." The 5th member of the group says nothing at all. Marcus stands a little apart, the way he's stood apart his whole life, a duffel bag of climbing gear over one shoulder. He's the one nobody asked many questions about. He's also the one who, 2 hours from now, is going to save 3 of their lives and end his own doing it. Though none of them know that yet, least of all him. "Listen close," the Warden says, crouching to draw something in the dirt with a stick. A rough circle, 5 points marked around the rim. "This forest isn't on any park map because it isn't a forest. 500 acres, fenced, monitored, and underneath it, cages. Old things. Things that used to only live in stories until somebody figured out how to keep them." Priya laughs once, sharp and disbelieving. Nobody else does. "That research team," the Warden continues, "works for the people who built those cages. They're running a live trial. Tonight, on this ridge, they're testing a containment failsafe. And the only way to test a failsafe is to let something out on purpose and see if it can be put back. And we're here to stop them," Dex says slowly, working it out. "We're here," the Warden says, standing, "to make sure that whatever gets out tonight doesn't stay out." He looks at each of them in turn. Renner watches our backs and watches the tree line. Dex tells us the second something living and old gets close. I don't care how small the feeling is. Priya, he hesitates here, just slightly, and it's the first crack any of them have seen in him. "Priya, you're with me. Marcus, you're our way out if this goes wrong. Everybody clear?" 3 nods. Priya doesn't nod. She's still doing the math on whether to walk. "One more thing," the Warden says, quieter now. "If I tell you to run, you run toward me, not away from the sound. The things in these woods are good at making you run the wrong direction." The research team's failsafe test goes wrong in less than 4 minutes. It starts with a sound. A long, droning frequency that doesn't belong to any animal, rolling out from the ridge station like a tide going out before a wave comes in. Dex drops to his knees, hands clapped over his ears. Except the sound isn't loud, it's wrong. A frequency built to bypass ears entirely and go straight for the part of the brain that remembers being prey. "That's it," Dex gasps. "That's the call. Something's answering." Renner's scope finds movement first. "Ridge station, north side. Containment doors open. I see—" She stops. When she speaks again, her voice has lost its flatness. "I see a lot of them." Not one creature, a swarm, man-sized, antlered, moving on too many legs through the trees at a speed that makes the math feel impossible. The research team's emergency floodlights snap on, catching limbs and eyes and wet, glistening mouths in strobing half-second flashes before the screaming starts. "They weren't ready," the warden says, and for the only time all night, he sounds afraid. "They tested the failsafe before the perimeter was even sealed." "What do we do?" Priya's voice cracks. "We do not go toward the screaming," the warden says. "Whatever's in that swarm hunts towards sound and panic. The research team just rang every dinner bell in the county. But it's already too late to simply leave. Something in the swarm has already peeled off, drawn by Dex's earlier scream, moving through the dark toward the 5 of them with a patience that's somehow worse than speed." This is where the forest stops being a forest and starts being a maze with teeth. Renner first. She takes position in a tall pine, the way she's trained to 100 times before, rifle braced, eyes on the gap in the trees where the thing will have to cross. What she doesn't know, what nobody could have known, is that this specific tree has its own resident. Something old, slow, and patient that has been waiting in the dead wood for exactly this kind of disturbance. A body, climbing, breathing hard, leaving fear sweat on bark that hasn't tasted prey in decades. The tree doesn't fall, it closes. Renner gets one shot off, clean, perfect, the kind of shot she's proud of, before the bark folds over her like a hand closing into a fist. The warden hears the shot. He doesn't hear anything after it, and that silence is worse than any scream. Dex is next, and Dex is the one who realizes too late what he's actually for. The warden never wanted Dex's gift. He wanted Dex's fear. Because fear, out here, is a frequency too, and the things below ground can taste it through the soil like a tripwire. Every time Dex panics, he's been ringing a second dinner bell nobody told him about. When he finally understands this, gasping it out to Priya in the dark, "He used me as bait. He used me as bait the whole time." The understanding itself is what gives him away. He goes quiet with horror, and quiet is when they find him. Priya watches Dex disappear into brush that closes over him without a single branch snapping back into place, like the forest simply swallowed and didn't bother chewing. Here is what the warden never told any of them, including himself, fully until tonight. He didn't come back to stop a containment failure. 10 years ago, the warden worked for the same agency running tonight's failsafe test. He helped design the cages. He helped write the rules for what gets fed to what and when, and how much screaming is an acceptable loss in a quarterly report. He left after the first time a test went the way tonight is going. Except that time, the person it cost was his daughter, 11 years old, brought to a family observation day that the agency swore was perfectly safe. He has spent 10 years since then hunting these same creatures, one by one, alone, for free, for nobody, until he ran out of money and ran out of years and finally, for the first time, started charging for it. Renner, Dex, Priya, Marcus, they were never told they were the bait that draws the agency's attention away from his actual target, the Ridge Station itself, where the agency keeps a single locked cage that holds the thing he actually came for. Priya, cornered against a fallen log with nowhere left to run, finally puts it together in the worst possible moment. "You're not hunting them," she says, breath ragged, watching shapes move at the edge of the light. "You're herding them, toward the station. You want them to wreck it." "Yes," the warden says, and for the first time all night, He sounds almost relieved to say it out loud. "You knew people would die out here tonight." "I knew I might die out here tonight. I told you the risks when I hired you. I never lied to any of you about that part." It's a thin defense, and he knows it. Marcus is the one who gets them out. Marcus, who said almost nothing all night, who everyone assumed was just muscle for the climb back down. What none of them knew, Marcus spent 4 years in the agency's containment division before this. He knows the ridge station's layout better than the Warden does. He knows that the fail-safe frequency, the one droning out across the whole forest, has a counter-frequency, a recall tone, built into every containment system as a literal off switch, in case of exactly this kind of disaster. He also knows where the override panel is, and he knows it's a one-way trip to reach it. "Get her out," Marcus tells the Warden, nodding at Priya, already moving toward the station's side door at a dead run. "I can shut it down. I can't shut it down and outrun what's behind me." "Marcus, you used all of us," Marcus calls back, not stopping. "I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing it so it stops being someone else's turn." He reaches the override panel with 11 seconds to spare by Priya's later count. Not that it matters, because 11 seconds and 0 seconds cost him the same thing. The recall tone goes out clean and clear across all 500 acres, and one by one, in the dark, the things that got loose stop moving toward warm bodies and start moving back toward the ground that calls them home. Marcus doesn't make it out of the station. Priya, hauled half-carried by the Warden through brush that has finally, mercifully gone still, hears the side door give way behind her and doesn't look back. She decides afterward that this was a kindness she did for herself, not for him. Somewhere off-site, in a room full of monitor banks and very calm men in very ordinary clothes, someone reaches over and flags the night's incident report. Contained. Acceptable losses. 3 names go into a file that will never see daylight. A 4th name, Marcus's, gets a small private note attached, the kind that says, "This one knew what he was doing," which makes him more useful dead than most of them are alive. The Warden and Priya walk out of the tree line at 4 a.m., neither speaking, both alive for reasons neither of them has fully earned. "Why'd you let them die?" Priya finally asks, miles down the access road. "If you knew the risk going in." "I didn't let them," the Warden says. "I just didn't tell them which risk was real." Priya doesn't ask him anything else. She also doesn't take his next job offer 3 weeks later when it comes, though she keeps the number just in case the day comes when she needs the money badly enough to forget why she should say no. Behind them, the forest goes back to looking like a forest. It always does by morning. Priya never spoke to the Warden again. 3 weeks later, when his next job offer arrived, she stared at his number for a long time before quietly putting the phone away. Some mysteries were too dangerous to chase, and some forests demanded a price no amount of money could repay. As dawn broke over the Appalachian Mountains, the mist slowly swallowed every trace of the night's horror. The screams were gone. The blood disappeared beneath fresh leaves. Birds returned to the branches, and the forest looked exactly as it always had. Peaceful, ordinary, innocent. That was its greatest deception, because the Appalachian forest had been hiding its darkest secret long before the Warden was ever born, long before Site Blackwood, long before children began disappearing without a trace. To understand what truly lives beneath these mountains, we have to go back to where it all began. More than a century earlier, before there were monsters, before there was the Hollow Covenant, before anyone knew that something ancient was sleeping beneath Black Hollow